Hello, welcome back. I'm going to see if I can get through this quickly this morning and then update it further tomorrow. But I wanted to talk about technologies. You'll see that word there. It's kind of funny, but I think it's actually very, very serious what we're facing right now. And I wanted to start with the question, when was the last time you read a terms of service or a privacy policy? All websites right now have to have them. And have you taken the time to read them? The answer is no, of course not. Because we learned early on, it doesn't matter what you think, it's already been decided for you. And I've gone through the manipulation that even if you read it word by word, all 100 pages today, you'll get an update in a few days that gives you a different a package that was already preempted, but they're knowing that you won't agree to that one either. So what are they hiding? But let me see if I can get this. It won't change, so I'll just do my best in grabbing what I have here. But we scroll, we tap, we agree, we surrender, and somehow we call it using technology. But the reality is, are we using technology, or are we now in a phenomenon where technology is using us and making us obsolete? This is a serious question. So, hello, my name is Barbara. This is Tech Reality. Welcome to this YouTube channel. I really hope that if you enjoy this video, the concept, that you do like it. I hear that that really helps get the message out there. And of course, the subscribe button, I guess sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. Right now, it seems to be working for individuals. So there's the pitch. So the illusion of choice. Again, I ask, when was the last time that you reviewed or read the terms of service? And I mean, even printed them out and really looked at them. And that might have been something as simple as going and getting your next cell phone and having an agreement with the phone company where you get your phone for free. There's always terms of services along with that. And they'll do it on an electronic format, and you're supposed to just electronically sign it. Nobody can read that. You can't scroll through all the pages. And if you ask for a printout for over a decade, they would provide that with anger. How dare you ask me to print this out for you? And then you could redline and at least have a copy of what you've agreed to and what you haven't. The individual that works in the retail shop doesn't know the difference. They just want to make the sale, but you at least have a record that you tried. But then you got a user update and it erased any work that you did. So the reality is most people have never. And the truth is very simple. It doesn't matter. You either agree to use the tool or you walk away. And why aren't we walking away more? Everywhere we go, they want us to sign a QR code. You don't know what's on the other side of that QR code. Don't put QR codes in the camera of your phone to scan, period. Apps, everywhere you go, they want the app on your phone. You know what? If you want their information, you can go to their URL, which at least has some level of screening if you go through a URL or a browser like Google. They'll screen for some validity. You don't need the app on your phone because even if you're giving permissions for certain items, it doesn't matter. They take what they want. The access they self-grant. They're just kind of giving you an initial knowledge. Is that legal? No, it's not. And they can be kicked off the platform. But honestly, do you think they care? All they do is pop up with another name the next day and relaunch again. It's not even a whack-a-mole. They know the game, and you seem to be the one following the rules. So again, I ask, why aren't more people walking away? Because the apps are shiny, because people like to gather and collect, because we're digital gatherers stuffing our phones with features we don't understand. And quite honestly, most of them will never use again. You know, every time my phone updates, all of a sudden I have bloatware on it. Bloatware is software that is installed by, I thought, the manufacturer of the phone. However, now that I've switched phone carriers, it's actually installed by the phone carrier. So why do I have a bunch of games in my tray showing that they've not only been downloaded, but I've recently used some of them? I don't put games on my phone for the reasons I just stated. And yet they self-put them on there. Many of them can be deleted right away. Some of them get embedded and you cannot delete them. So why would they care whether or not you play games? They don't. It's spyware. So we just really got to be aware of what tools we're using. So most people use maybe 10% of their phone capability, especially if you have a higher end iOS. The Apple phones have long had an immense amount of features that many of us just don't have a need for. All those cameras and bells and whistles are cool. And there's a small number of photographers or content creators that really optimize that. But beyond that, most of us just paid another extra $1,000 on top of what we would have paid for just a basic phone to have in our pocket to keep in contact with our family. But it was shiny, it was new. So we keep downloading more apps, more platforms, and quite honestly, more noise that is trying to grab your attention. Technology does help us, and that's the point of this channel. But it is also frustrating us. It isolates us and removes the human being from the equation. And when there's no human being to talk to, there's no one accountable. And people lose hope. And this is a lot of where we're at today. So welcome back to the channel. Once again, I want to remind you, this is Tech Reality with Barbara. I'm based here in Silicon Valley. I have decades of insight into the truth behind the app or the website, any of the technology that's out today, specifically with autonomous vehicles and AI assist large learning models such as Intuit's TurboTax and QuickBooks. But let's continue into segment 2 here. When technology replaces humanity. I mentioned last week I did a video on Beverly, a call for help. She spent years trying to get someone else to listen to her. She kept running into one computer system after another or one override after another. They violated every law. They violated title fraud laws. They violated elder abuse protections. They violated the protections of eviction and property seizure in the state of California. Anything you can think of, they violated. But if she dare move forward and say, this is my property, or ever step back on that land, she will be arrested, as she was when she had the audacity to have her car in front of her home, not on the property, but at 82 years old, didn't know where else to go. So the right solution is to arrest her. And yet still the DA and the police and now the FBI appear to be continuing to be in collusion and covering up what happened. Somehow the documents are missing, and the evidence we present is similar. When I tried to sue the federal government, they say they don't have the lawsuit. They don't have the demand. They haven't been served. And yet you can stand there and say the papers are in your hand right now, and they'll lie to your face. Somehow in the public sector, this has become acceptable. So with Beverly, she spent years trying to get someone to listen. And then one day, a computer sends a note to another computer. The clerk's office accepts it and files it. And in an instant, her home that she had owned for decades and decades, since the 1980s, was no longer hers. No conversation, no explanation, just digital action behind the scenes that humans then accepted as truth. This is a real world consequence of the manipulation. Computers didn't do it on their own. Somebody was on the each side of that transaction. Somebody was manipulating it, and somebody wasn't bright enough to realize the consequences for the actions of their taxpayer job that they accepted that document and allowed the transfer. People react. Well, again, this is a digital action with real consequences in the real world. This isn't just the simulation. So yesterday I talked about one of the calmest, peaceful places. You just sit and cuddle with a book. Have your child learn a little bit of games and blocks. And yet it was another world. the professionals they've been hiring, if we can call them professionals, and I've asked for a hiring process. I read all that to you yesterday. There's a lack of professionalism, in fact, a lack of common sense, a lack of empathy, and a lack of basic human skill. What happened yesterday was an absolute disgrace, and it was disgusting. Moments like that can derail a person's life completely, forever. People actually react. I sat there calmly. I've seen this circus many times before where you hire a bunch of idiots and the idiots get all flustered when they're doing something wrong. They look to point fingers to someone else to cover it up, and it results in an escalation that's unnecessary. Luckily, I calmly sat there, engaged in the conversation, asked some key questions, but that's often not what we hear. And as I went to another location and then on to the congressman's office to ask about it, I heard that that particular location is targeting a lot of their patrons. And many are getting arrested. Actually, for what? Not being polite? Now, I don't know the other cases, but if that's what I was told, how ridiculous does this get? Especially when politeness or rudeness can't even be described to the individual that the police were called on. But all because the human element has been replaced with rigid systems and people who don't know how to handle them. You know, if you're in customer service, you're told that if somebody is rude to you, to not only hang up the phone, but file a note or tag in the file for that individual. If it's a software, they can be blocked from using the software, but they still have to pay for it. But it's not within the ecosystem of that particular company. This blocking system is shared across customer service terminals. So let's say you find out one day on your credit card you've been overcharged by $1,000, or at Intuit, many people said, what's this $7,000 bill? And Intuit doesn't back down. Once they charge, they don't want to give the money back, even if they had no grounds to charge. And I saw from the back end massive overcharges, hoping that people wouldn't notice the way that anyways, it was not on accident. And then when people get angry that the money just isn't being stopped and reversed and that they will not be given it back, people start to raise their voices, get upset. And we're told, don't take that. Well, you know what? If we step back a moment and realize, wait a minute, we caused this, not them. They are our customer. And we start to treat them as a customer and say, look, here's the actual pathway to resolve it. This is not what we as customer service are informed. And you are certainly not informed of it any longer through your terms of service, through the escalation policy that you're privy to. But I do know that if you take this route, you can actually get a resolution there. People appreciate that. They may vent. I've had people, even when I came in as a secondary over a call, people would want to yell at me and I'd say, look, I'm listening and I'm taking notes. Get it out. I agree. We did it. Take ownership. And that's not where customer service lies anymore. So all because that human element has been replaced with rigid systems and people who just don't know how to handle them on either side. Once that reaction happens and there's an escalation, we often don't look at what was the rule or policy that put this in place. And is it actually something that is pertinent right now? So segment 3, I wanted to look at governments losing control. Tech is filling a vacuum here. We saw this a lot during the manipulation of COVID, but this morning I saw a video by Mike Benz, B-E-N-Z. I suggest if you have an interest there in these social media platforms that you do go to his channel and look at that. He warns J.D. Vance and any other individual that might be running for the United States presidential role in the next election that there's going to be a major lawsuit, I believe he said, of 7 different countries going against our social media platforms, and he names them all. Primarily Europe, and they're going to sue in order to give death strikes to these social media because they know primarily on the right, because the left has really hit themselves hard. And there's a lot of entanglement in the recent files that came out. And apparently there's a lot more files to be released. So as we move into the direction, the way to knock the right down at the knees is to cut off the communication channels. So all major social media in the United States, according to Mike Benz, will be attacked right about summer of 2028. And he highlights the fact that France just raided the X office and in fact is maintaining the right to drag Elon into court over free speech. They don't have the First Amendment there. And quite honestly, we're losing the First Amendment here. If we look back at, let's say, the issue at the library, again, very innocuous, no big deal. If in fact there was rudeness or impoliteness, was it a word, an action? I don't know. It had to have been on the word side but who knows? But if there was a word, was that not under a First Amendment right? The bottom line is they have no claim. They can't even verbalize what happened. So I am guessing here, but no, it isn't anymore. And then the right to completely suspend me from all libraries in the system was what was noted when I went to the other branch. Becomes very serious very quickly. So the First Amendment, let me skip up here. So governments are losing control. And instead of fixing their systems, let's say in the United States, we have a constitution. The constitution is not to protect the government from the people. That's not what it is. It's we the people. And it outlines the protections of the people from the government. What rights do you maintain in order to have a government that is supposedly voted for and paid for by you in order to provide basic protections? Instead, they're squeezing our speech, silencing us, and for many J6ers, we've seen lockups. The First Amendment is being pressured from two sides: tech manipulation and government overreach. And while all of this is happening, what's actually trending? Erika Kirk, Candace Owens, Saga Steele, I'm sorry, is that Sage Steele? Drama, cat fights, receipts, accusations, millions of views. It's all about getting people caught up in the drama and following the sagas. I think it might be the new form of soap operas. What are they called? Telenovelas. That to really drag people in, get them to tune in from day to day. It works. But in this case, there's an education component. People love drama because it feels like the truth, especially in this case. But truth isn't entertainment. Truth is evidence. Truth is consistency. And truth is what remains when the lies collapse. And right now, technology is making it harder and easier to find the truth at the same time. Segment 4, technology and the great revealer. Nothing about recent incidents have made sense. Not the reports, not the timelines, not the shifting stories, but technology changed the game. The Wayback Machine, geolocation. Have you seen some of those people? Who is that? Rain Bolt, I think it is, that you give him a picture and he can tell you where on earth that picture is. That is dynamic, that we have the ability and accuracy right at our fingertips to do that. Digital simulations, geospatial analysis, and you know what? Common sense. Crowdsourcing the truth is now possible. We can all work together. We can communicate. We can share what we know. It can either fit in the puzzle or can go in another puzzle. We can crowdfund investigations. We can achieve everything now. We can archive it and expose contradictions instantly. We're living in the first era where the public can fact check the powerful in real time, and we're doing it. And this is why the bandwagon of TPUSA and Erika Kirk is so massive. Stories came out, and we all knew that was not possible. And once receipts were proven and evidence came forward, whether it's cameras or other witnesses or simulations, any of these scenarios, then their story changed. The story of the truth doesn't change. There isn't multiple truths. There's one truth. And this is what we're getting to. Sweetheart. Here he wants to talk today. Here he is. Okay, there we go. Okay, not today, okay? Okay, you just put him back down. Come on. I love you too. Come on. Okay, there we go. See how long that lasts. So again, we're living in the first era where the public can fact check in real time, and this is key. So segment 5, the psychology behind the drama. Last night, I was playing around a little bit with ChatGPT, and I asked AI about the psychological profile of a spouse, specifically a wife, who would unalive their partner, the husband. AI warned me about applying this to the real world, and that's fair. But you know what? The traits that came up, and there were almost a dozen, were perfectly in alignment with the actions that we've witnessed over the last 4 months from a specific individual. And that seems odd, and yet they did line up. The traits like manipulation and control, image creating, narcissism, narrative shifting, emotional volatility, the facial expressions that don't seem to match the appropriate moment. Those patterns have been on full display for months in the public drama that we've been watching unfold. You know, at one point we started to ask the question, and I honestly don't remember who asked this first. I think it might have been Coach Colin, but I apologize if it was somebody else. We all have a grieve period. People do grieve differently. We know that. But we have a period of grieving in certain scenarios. How much longer did some individuals have to grieve this than others? Meaning, how far in advance did they know than the actual moment that it occurred? So segment 6, where are we today? We're in a world where technology can erase your home without a single automated filing. With a single automated filing. And people will just look the other way. A clerk can ruin your day because they don't know how to be human, how to talk to somebody. Governments raid tech companies because they can't control speech. And influencers wage digital wars with timestamps and receipts. Crowdsource the truth. And the public crowdsources truth faster than institutions can suppress it. This is the world we live in now. We're living in a collusion between human nature and digital power. Segment 7. Well, what can you do? With technology, of course, you can archive everything, verify claims, protect your data, build communities, find the truth, and even fund the truth. Document your life. Hold institutions accountable. When you file FOIAs, Freedom of Information Act, or California Open Records Act requests, or whatever state or county that you're in, demand the responses. Don't let them ignore it. Don't let it slide. Put them on notice. And you can take them to small claims court. You don't even have to take them to superior court in order to demand production of those documents. But until we start using our voices and putting our feet firm on the ground, this manipulation is not going to change. And that guarded First Amendment will no longer exist. So the balance is the point. Technology is the tool. It's not the master. It's certainly not the savior on any spectrum. And at this point, it's not the villain. It's just a tool. But the moment we start surrendering, the moment we start surrendering to it, and start using the intentional we rather than understanding that this actually affects individuals like you and I, and that our decisions affect others, we need to continue to take our power back. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. And again, I started this off with the technologies, manipulation, surrender, and the drama that is distracting us with AI. Okay, that's the wrap for today. I wish you a wonderful day, and we'll hop back on tomorrow. We'll see what the drama unrolls this weekend, because as we know, one more segment here, we know that after this open letter that Candace put out there, she's now going to be silent until Monday. When she's silent for a week or two for her vacations, it's the same thing. When she goes silent, we start seeing the squabbling and the squirming and a whole bunch of speaking and receipts fly. And this time, the questions are direct. We want to know the truth. There's been an alleged over $250 million flowing to this particular company. They keep calling it a company, nonprofit. There's a lot of LLCs that are money laundering those funds in different directions, allegedly. There's been individuals who have stated that they're probably involved in at least the cover-up of the removal of an individual, and they don't seem to care about that. But the moment anybody talks about finances, out come the lawsuits. Let's take our power back. All of us as individuals. Have a great weekend. We'll see what it looks like on Monday. Bye.